COVID cases climb, political rhetoric intensifies. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Anna Staver, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Derek Clay, Democratic strategist, and Bob Clegg, Republican strategist. As COVID cases dropped this spring, so did the political intensity surrounding the pandemic. Well, both are rising again. In July, Ohio's daily new case rate has tripled and its hospitalization rate has doubled. The death rate has remained steady and low, thankfully. But new worries about the fast-spreading Delta variant and Ohio's still lagging vaccination rate have officials strongly recommending unvaccinated people wear masks, especially those returning to school. At least for now, the state will not issue any mask mandates for schools as it did last year.
Schools will make their own decision. I'll make it very clear. This is local. Schools will make the decision. Parents will make the decision whether their individual child is going to wear that mask if the school doesn't elect to do it.
Derek Clay, do you think the state should mandate that school kids wear masks when they go back to class, in the next few weeks?
Well, the governor has made it very clear that it's going to be the local schools that make that decision. But the bottom line is the unvaccinated population has really put us in the predicament that we're in now. The variant is upon us, it's mutating, and we have to be in a position where we're not in lockdown again. That's the last thing we want to happen, because if the kids can't go back to school, then that's going to put a strain on parents. It's going to put a strain on business and industry, and it's going to be a massive economic crash if we have to go back to the way we were a year or so ago.
Bob Clegg, do you think if a local school district were to say, look, you got to wear a mask, especially for the younger kids, the kids younger than 12. If you don't wear a mask, you got to stay home and you got to home learn. Will that convince even mask skeptics to say, you know what, just wear the mask and get back to class?
Maybe, but it's the people. I mean, I'm going out right now and I see people, and I still see some people with masks. But I'll bet you any amount of money those people with masks are vaccinated people. They're not unvaccinated people. Yeah. So, each parent's got to make that decision. I like the fact that the governor is leaving it up to each local school district to make that decision, because I really think it is a local issue, depending on, how serious the situation in any locality is. The local officials should be the ones that are making that call. But ultimately, the bottom line on all of this for school kids is the fact that parents got to do what they got to do, and whatever parents decide for their child is going to have to, be what's going on with that child.
And as Staver, we have reached that 50 new cases per 100,000 residents again, and that was the threshold at one point where the governor, took away the mask mandates and all the other mandates. He said there's no appetite for mandates. Do you see any way he issues any kind of mandates in the next few weeks anyway?
Well, what's different now, too, is the legislature has a legal way to unwind those mandates. They overrode his veto in the spring, and now it is law. So they can come in and remove those health orders if he puts them in place. And what his spokesperson has said is look, it's different now. Everyone who wants a vaccine can get one. There's no wait for it. And if people choose not to vaccinate and they choose not to mask, it's kind of their choice. But I don't think he has an appetite for it, because I think the legislature would overturn it. There are also Senator Andrew Brenner up here in my area has introduced a bill that would ban schools from instituting mask mandates, and he expects to try to take that up in the fall. So I think lawmakers, or sort of the Republican majority in the legislature, opposes the idea, and that's why DeWine doesn't have an appetite for it.
Derek, I mean, the CDC now says that this Delta variant is basically like the chicken pox. It's more contagious than the common cold, more contagious than the seasonal flu. And now there's some evidence that those who get the Delta variant, who don't have the vaccine, suffer greater symptoms or more serious illness. We just got to watch to see how this plays out before. I mean, I don't want to put a mask back on, and I always wore a mask. I mean, the appetite, as the governor says, for masks is just, it's not there at all right now. Are we at that point where people are going to want to put those masks back on?
Well, Mike, if we would have listened to the scientists in the first place, then we would have been in a much better position than we are now. You know, I think that we had some very misguided information that came from the previous administration. And, you know, the CDC is in a position now where they have to do what's best for the greater public. And right now, that is, you know, the alternative is for unvaccinated people to wear masks. You know, no one wanted to wear masks. I mean, no one wanted to be cooped up in the house for a year either, and the economy to be shut down. But this is a once in 100 year pandemic that has come upon us. And we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we are trying to keep what is upon us to a minimum.
Bob Clegg, if this plays out and there is no statewide mask mandate, particularly for schools, the way it trends is the least vaccinated areas of Ohio have also been, perhaps you would think, I think evidence shows, the areas of Ohio that have been most opposed to mask mandates. So those districts, no low vaccine rates, not going to be wearing masks in school. Does that not put those kids and the folks who live with those kids and those teachers in harm's way?
Well, it could, but you know what? Once again, people have to make these decisions for themselves and their children, and I don't think government should be coming in here trying to dictate how you're going to be living your life. And as you just mentioned, in essence, we cannot put the genie back in the bottle. Where, you know, the vast majority of people are past wearing masks again. The CDC, I don't think it has much credibility anymore. So whatever they're putting out, people are taking with a grain of salt. And you're seeing politically here some interesting things, like out in California, Gavin Newsom, who's now under recall, isn't really pushing the masks. He's not pushing the shutdown or potential shutdown of California, even though they've been hit pretty hard by this Delta variant. I think our politicians have got the message that they got to tread very carefully here. And people aren't going to be just going along like they did a year and a half ago. It's now become politically dangerous to start mandating things.
On your comment that the CDC doesn't have credibility, isn't it true though, Bob, that we're just learning more about this disease? The Delta variant, we didn't even know it didn't exist when this thing started more than a year ago. Now we're learning as it spreads around the world that it's more contagious, that it might be more serious. Is that really the CDC lacking credibility, or were just the CDC learning on the fly, which is what was happening here?
Well, yeah, some of that is learning on the fly, so they have to change things quickly. But then you also have people looking at the fact that the CDC came out and said don't wear masks in the beginning, and they didn't say we don't want you to wear masks because we're afraid there's going to be a run on masks and the people that should have them, the healthcare providers, won't. They just said, oh no, you won't need a mask, so therefore don't mask up. And then you have all this other stuff that's been going on where they're not sure how contagious things were. They weren't sure about. And a lot of that is, we don't have the information, but the cumulative effect is that they've switched things enough over the last year and a half that people keep saying, well, I thought we were supposed to do it this way. Well, now we aren't. Now, it might be just they're learning more about it, but it just, people aren't trusting them like they would have, I think, a year and a half ago.
Derek, on that point, how do you communicate that to the public to say, okay, we said no masks in the beginning because we didn't think they were going to be effective. But then the science shows that wearing a mask, if both parties are wearing a mask, the infected and uninfected are wearing a mask, it really reduces spread. How do you communicate that to the public, and have they done a good enough job in relaying that to the public? Can they relay to the public that this is changing? Derek.
Well, what I would say first is that the CDC has definitely regained credibility under the Biden administration. And yes, communication is very key. Communication is very key. I mean, proven if you wear masks, if the collective wear masks, that's going to reduce the spread of the virus. I don't think anybody can argue with that. Now, is it uncomfortable to wear the mask? Absolutely, it is. Do people like to wear the mask? No, they don't. But the bottom line is we're in a pandemic, and we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we are keeping this virus at bay.
The other mandate, Anna Staver, is vaccine mandates. And nobody's really issued mandates yet. Specifically, the federal government is basically going to have many more requirements of federal workers who do not get vaccinated. They're going to have to get tested more often. They're going to have to wear masks. But we're seeing signs that vaccine mandates might be coming. Is there any talk of that at the State House? Probably not if you're not going to mandate masks, but I'm just wondering.
Well, there's talk of preventing people from doing it. So sort of in the opposite direction. There's talk of not allowing businesses or schools or certain institutions to mandate vaccines until they're FDA approved, which is expected to happen this fall. But what I find interesting is the way, like, even different schools here in Ohio, higher education is handling it. So like OSU asks all their students to give them vaccine status. And what they're saying is if you are vaccinated, then you can go to class as normal. But if you're not, then you've got to wear masks and you got to test every week. And Ohio Wesleyan isn't even accepting students. They have a vaccine mandate. And they're a private university, but they're saying no vaccine, no attendance. That's all. So I think it's really interesting to watch how private business is doing it and how places like OSU are sort of working around it and saying, we just want to know your vaccine status and you're free to come to campus if you test once a week.
Yeah, as a proud employee of Ohio State University, I read the final print of that thing. They want to know our vaccine status, and we have to give them the vaccine status. And it says, so to get more information for contact tracing, in the final line in the letter, in the instruction is, and to drive decisions on public health measures needed for the Ohio State community. So the door is open there for a mandate at some point. Bob Clegg, now they're a public university, public institution. What about private companies? At Broadway in New York, you have to show proof of vaccination to see a play or a musical. Should private companies in Ohio be allowed to do the same, do you think, Bob Clegg?
Sure. I mean, it's once again, as long as they're not mandated by government to do it, each company's got to make that determination of their own. I know a lot of restaurants and bars are not real thrilled about the idea of going back to masks because they just know that their business is not as good as it could be. So I think it's going to depend on the industry. I think if it's a business that's got a lot of workers that are close to each other on an assembly line or something, they may mandate vaccinations. And they're private sector. If a employee doesn't like that, then they have that option of either quitting or taking a leave or whatever. I just don't like the idea that government's going to come in and mandate that a company has to do that. Because there are some companies, like I said, that are not going to want to either insist that their employees be vaccinated or that they insist that they wear masks.
Yeah, they don't want to be the police officers, the police of masks or vaccines. Derek, one issue that's still out there is this is still an emergency use authorization for these vaccines. But once the FDA gives it full approval, perhaps in the next couple of months or so, that changes the game a little bit. Do you expect some governments, probably not Ohio, but some governments to mandate vaccines, some organizations to mandate vaccines once that emergency use authorization is made a full authorization?
I think that that's really going to depend on the level of contaminated people that have the virus, where the trends are going, and quite honestly, where private business comes out on it. No one wants to see another shutdown. And I don't know if this country can survive another shutdown, to be quite honest, if we get to that point. So I think it's going to be a combination of, where the trends are with the virus, where private businesses on whether they think that particular state or community should have some sort of mandated vaccination program, and the will of the people as well.
Yep. All right, our next topic. More questions this week for Governor DeWine and his appointment of Sam Randazzo as the top utility regulator in the state. First Energy, which benefited from the scandal-plagued nuclear bailout, says it bribed Randazzo with a $4 million payment. Governor DeWine says he did not learn about the payment until the day the FBI raided Randazzo's home. But the Columbus Dispatch reports this week Randazzo informed the governor's then chief of staff about the payment 2 weeks before the raid. DeWine insists he thought Randazzo was a free agent when he appointed him as chair of the Public Utilities Commission.
Everybody knew Sam Randazzo had worked for First Energy, so it wasn't an issue. My understanding was that had been terminated. That relationship had been terminated, and we move on. I mean, look, Mr. Randazzo had asked by people on my team, do you have any conflict? These are standard questions that you're going to ask to any person. Anything going to embarrass the governor? Any conflicts? And the answer he gave was no.
Anna Staver, this comes down to the classic question: what did the governor know, and when did he know it? Right now, he says he had no idea about these alleged shenanigans.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of timeline questions that we're still waiting for the governor to answer. The first is that First Energy says they gave him this $4 million payment in January of 2019. And then he applied for the seat on the Utilities Commission, the Public Utilities Commission. And then DeWine announced his appointment a month later in February. So my first question is, how did your people who vet him miss $4 million, right? Like when you get vetted for one of these utilities commissions, they kind of do a background check. They look through your stuff. Like I know the governor said they asked him, do you have anything embarrassing? But they don't just leave it at ask. Like there are people dedicated to checking on these appointments to make sure there's nothing embarrassing. So my question is, how did you miss the $4 million in February of 2019? And let's assume he missed it. Then you get to October, and that's when his chief of staff is told. And keep in mind, Randazzo called his chief of staff the day after First Energy fired 3 executives, including the CEO. So they fire all these guys, and Randazzo calls Laurel Dawson and says, hey, just so you know, I took $4 million from them right before you appointed me. And apparently she sits on it for 17 days. And so the question everybody has is, why? Was she keeping the governor on a need-to-know basis? And if she did withhold this from him for 17 days, should she still have a job in his office? And if she didn't, then obviously he hasn't been truthful with us.
Bob Clegg, is it believable that your chief of staff, your top advisor, would not tell you of news that big until the FBI came knocking on Randazzo's door?
Who knows? Maybe she just felt, ooh, this is something that if I tell him, I'm going to get him involved in this, and maybe I should just keep it to myself. I don't know. They asked him when he was up for the PUCO chairmanship, do you have anything in your background, or is there any potential conflict of interest? He obviously didn't mention this $4 million. I don't know how they could have checked for that. I don't know if they have access to bank records and whether they could go in and see the transfer of money to there. I don't know how they could have figured this one out prior to his appointment. And as the governor said, everybody knew he had connections with First Energy. Obviously, they didn't know how much those connections were and how much money he was getting for those connections.
Sam Randazzo has not been criminally charged in this investigation, nor has Mike DeWine or anyone in his direct administration. Derek Clay, Mike DeWine says he hired Sam Randazzo because he's an expert. He had worked in a lot of different sectors directly related to the utility industry. It's a complex industry. He thought it would be good to have an expert in there, someone who knows how it works, to be the head of the Public Utilities Chairman. What do you think about this revolving door that often happens with this position?
Well, the energy sector is a very complex sector, and Sam Randazzo has been known for several years around the square as an expert in the energy space. But the question goes back to Anna's point. what is the timeline? And when did the governor know that this could be a potential issue for him? If Sam Randazzo and the connection between he and First Energy prior to the DeWine administration, totally legal transaction in my mind, but if there's any inkling of, impropriety moving into the administration, that's going to be a problem for the governor.
Anna Staver, some Democrats have called on Mike DeWine to fire folks who are connected with First Energy and this situation. Is the governor inclined to do that?
As of right now, it seems like the answer is no. These are longtime advisors to the governor, and he seems pretty loyal for right now. Obviously, that could change if we learn more or if the FBI releases more information. But one of the points I did want to make is that Republicans and Democrats who were part of the approval process for Randazzo have said they had no idea about all of his contracts with First Energy. They've come out and said, look, we didn't know this. The governor says it was common knowledge, but it wasn't knowledge to us. And if you go back and listen to some of those hearings, he said he wasn't going to, it's kind of like, I'm not going to kiss and tell. He wasn't going to talk about his clients during the process. So he wasn't completely forthcoming about his work for First Energy. And I don't think lawmakers feel like they knew enough about his ties when he got appointed to the board.
Okay. Final topic. Tuesday is special primary day for one of Central Ohio's congressional districts. Voters in the 15th district, Steve Stiver's old district, will pick the Republican and the Democrat to face each other in November. 11 Republicans are on the ballot. The bigger names are State Senators Stephanie Kunze and Bob Peterson. State Rep Jeff LaRae has Stiver's endorsement, but former coal lobbyist Mike Carey has the endorsement of former President Trump. On the Democratic side, only two candidates. State Rep Allison Russo of Upper Arlington faces retired Army officer Greg Betts. Bob Clegg, Donald Trump's endorsement didn't work out in Texas. Will it work here?
Yeah, I think it'll work here only because you just mentioned there's 11 people on the Republican side of this primary. The field's going to be so splintered that I think the Trump endorsement will push Mike Carey over the finish line. Down in Texas, it was a head-to-head race. And I think in those situations, it's a little tougher to prevail on just an endorsement from the president. But I think when it's this many people that are contending for the nomination, I think the presidential endorsement will be the deciding factor in who wins.
Derek Clay, this no doubt August 3rd, off-year election. This is going to be a friends and family election. Turnout is low, likely will be very low. Does that give the advantage to the Trump-endorsed candidate, or is it to the two state senators or the state rep who are proven vote getters and have a built-in constituency?
I agree with you. This election is going to be a very, very low turnout. I'd be surprised if there's 6,000 people that even vote in this thing. So you got a field of 11 people. I do think that it gives a bit of an advantage to the people that are in those House and Senate seats for the area. I don't think that Mike Carey is going to be the nominee. The Trump brand works in some places, it doesn't. But the bottom line is people are very familiar with their state reps and their state senators. And this guy was a coal lobbyist. Outside of people in the industry that may know him, a lot of people really don't know him other than his endorsement from former President Trump.
Yeah, the Trump organization, his PAC, is spending some money in the last few days on television during the Olympics, I guess. Heavy TV watching. We'll see how it all plays out. Primary day is Tuesday if you're in the 15th district. Don't forget to vote. All right, off the record time for our final thoughts and parting shots. We will start with Bob Clegg.
Well, Mike, you were just talking about what I was going to talk about, which is these special elections. is all based on turnout. And, remember we had one where I live here in the 12th 3 years ago where the Republican nominee ended up winning by a few hundred votes. So whether it's down here or up in Cleveland where the 11th district is having a race, every vote's going to count, and people should remember that and vote.
All right, Derek Clay.
We're less than a month away from the U.S. Census data being released and maps having to be drawn, and we still don't have a public process for people to provide public input into the process. So I'm hoping that no major vacations are being planned in the next month or so with these legislators, because they got a lot of work to do.
Yes, redistricting will be fast and furious in the next few months. Anna Staver, your final thought.
I would keep an eye on the eviction courts on Monday morning. The federal moratorium on evictions is over. We're going to have a reporter down there, and they expect sort of a crush of filings now that people can actually be evicted.
Yeah. U.S. Senator Rob Portman is back in the spotlight he welcomes this time, the governing spotlight, not the, what did Trump say now, spotlight. Portman spent the last month negotiating with Democrats. He helped forge a bipartisan infrastructure deal likely to become law. It's unlikely Portman would have been able to do that if he were running for re-election, though. A platform of, I cut a deal with Joe Biden to spend $3 billion would not have gone over well with GOP voters in the primary. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Facebook, Twitter, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.